a lot of this, well, if you look out here, the plants that you see, most of them are introduced Mediterranean annuals. They are not native Californians. Intent on eating young oaks or eating acorns, and so you kind of have to protect the acorns or the small seedlings from those. If you look on some of these trees here, you see a little plastic tube. These are called tree shelters. They're a double-walled polypropylene tube. They were developed in England. I blocked some things according to diameter once to see if it made a difference, and it didn't. So, you know, it seems like for oaks these work pretty well. For conifers, they don't seem to work very well. But for oaks, and maybe especially deciduous oaks, they work pretty well. This study, we actually had a row of acorns and a row of seedlings. So that was one factor in a multi-factor experiment, and we found that they all did about the same, you know?
And the folks working on this restoration project discovered that black rails were in the Sierra and foothills. This was truly an interesting discovery because most people think of them as being around places like large lakes and the Salton Sea and these sorts of things. So one of the things that's interesting about this species is that it does make jumps. And one of the things that may have happened is the black rails may have invited themselves back on as this area of wetland gradually changed as the goals and the kind of management direction of the station changed.
Was some of the first research done on oaks here at the Research and Extension Center, and the research was taking all the oaks down and seeing how much more grass you could get. And it was pretty much like the hillsides we see in the distance here, very dense stands of oak trees.
Weren't so good for the native plants that we had in California. So they spread rapidly and were consumed by livestock through the 1800s and even up to this date. We started to also get some introduced, maybe some unintentional introductions of weeds, such as Medusa head. We've been passing quite a bit of Medusa head on the way in.
The challenge we have is scaling from this up to the pasture. So I'll talk about research we've done at multiple scales. But at this scale, we're able to, say, an irrigated pasture. Up at the top here, we got a meter and deliver water. We can put water on at whatever rate we want and however distance we want. There's a young man from Nevada, Reno right now doing studies on just what comes out of a fecal pad, period. So he's putting a fecal pad down here and he's looking at hormones that might be coming out that are growing. We've had interest in looking at perennial grasses compared to that we might get established in a restoration setting.
Yeah.
As opposed to, these are perennial, but perennial natives. Say. Yeah. And that's something we've considered doing. We've not had a grant yet, to be honest with you, to test that. But these could easily be converted. We could plant whatever we wanted, and we could look at different types of vegetation and their capacity to sequester. And so we put this in maybe 7-8 years ago, and I'm always looking for opportunities to use it. So I collaborate a lot with folks that are interested in various things.
So this first one is about Native American use because we had a crew out here doing some work and they wanted to have lunch, so they brushed off this rock, and it has a wonderful bunch of nice grinding holes on it. One we really didn't know about until somebody swept it off.
This is just a key to assess whether or not you have a regeneration problem. This area right here, we have a lot of young natural regeneration, but not much of it is escaping beyond that.
And to feed the other parts of the tree's growth. So this guy doesn't have a lot stored. He's going to grow up, he's going to die in the fire. Coast live oak is going to survive the fire.
When I wrote this, I said this was all ended about 40 years ago, because the last gravel dredge, I think, was in the 60s here. I happened to go to the Nevada County Fair, I live in Grass Valley, and a guy had a model, about a 9-foot model of a dredge, and I said that was something when they were in operation. He said, there's one working down here in the Yuba River right now. I think it's may be operated by Tykert, but it's one of the gravel companies. And with gold at, you know, keeps going down, $16.30 an ounce or so, it's still pretty dang profitable.
Guidelines book. And what we did when we put this together is we came up, if you look at the front here, we put together a little matrix based on cover type and canopy density.
Putting in the steps.
No, I'd have to ask my veterinarian friend on that one. In terms of yourself.
It's colder than Tahoe, I guarantee it.
You might have to see if I agree with you.
I tried to swim here and